Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And Geeky found an article this morning that warrants discussion.
It made me happy.
It made you a little happy. There's an interview out there with the guys doing the live-action Masters of the Universe movie for Netflix. Mm-hmm. And yes, this is the one with the West Side Story
Right.
Guy in it, and whatever. And it could be a complete disaster.
But that's not what tickled me.
No, what tickled Geeky was there is a bit of a slapdown of Kevin Smith.
It seems that way, and it just filled me with joy.
Yeah, it seems like these guys had to pitch the movie, and they're kind of low-key saying, we're not going to do what Revelation did. Mm-hmm. And they didn't mention Kevin Smith specifically, but they did address one of the things he said when he was doing his PR tour and said, we're not going to do that.
I can't stop smiling.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about this. Why didn't they call Kevin up to do the live-action movie?
Because they want to actually have something that people like.
We're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 261,000 subs.
Woohoo!
Thank you so much for the support, and thank you, Kevin Smith, for about 20,000 of those subs.
Yeah, probably.
By dragging us out and flogging us for reporting on rumors, which turned out to be true. Calling us liars. So yeah, there's a little bit of bias here. And look, regardless, if Revelation came out and it was a fucking masterpiece, right? And it was amazing. We'd be like, okay, we had our beef with Kevin Smith. The show was still pretty good.
We said that. We said that if it came out and was good, that we hoped he was telling the truth. And if it came out and was good, we'd say so.
Right. Fortunately, Revelation came out. It was a complete shit show. It was the Tila and Evil Lynn show. Mm-hmm. And it was worse. The second part was worse than we could have possibly imagined. Now,
I still love how he has to power down so he can screw Evil Lynn.
Skeletor loses, he gets the power of the universe, and he loses the power of the universe to bang Evil Lynn, who becomes a she-man with the powers. Like, what the hell? What the hell? Now, it shouldn't surprise you because Kevin Smith has gone on record on Comic Book Man, actually, as saying he is not a He-Man fan.
But he tried to say, walk that back many times later.
Yeah, and it shows. This is Evil Lynn. It shows that he's not a Masters of the Universe fan. He doesn't fundamentally understand these characters, this universe. I almost get the vibe that he just thumbed through a couple of the DC comics and listened to the toy guy from Mattel and threw the show together.
Yeah, he brought the toy guy from Mattel a lot, and the guy from Netflix.
Yeah,
the one guy from Netflix, he constantly, he's a big fan, and it seems like the three of them were the ones who had this brilliant idea.
And here's the problem. When he was doing the PR for this is how you knew he fundamentally did not understand Masters of the Universe. And these guys want to lean into what makes Masters of the Universe unique. Let's go out and see what Kevin Smith said when he was doing promotion for Revelation, what he thought of He-Man. And it's very telling because he basically thinks Masters of the Universe is a generic fantasy franchise and the elements of it can be swapped out with any other franchise, including Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. And that there's nothing that really makes He-Man unique. Obviously, for a guy who said he doesn't care for the show that much. This is Kevin Smith. For our incarnation of Masters of the Universe, Revelation, it leans on every franchise that you love. There's Star Wars in it. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings in it. There's a lot of Marvel movies in it. But it's all the ingredients, the chief elements of Mattel characters you know and love. But the DNA has baked into it a lot of satisfying other franchises that I loved.
So I'm relating to it by relating to other franchises that I think it leans into.
Right. So in my head, I've crossed over with all of them.
Yeah, in your head.
We cherry-picked feelings, set pieces, arcs, things like that. If you're going to do a thing, do it right. Call it homage, call it theft. But there's a lot of other great stuff at the root of our Masters of the Universe Revelation.
That's based on other shows.
It's based on other shows. If you had all those action figures for our Masters of the Universe, you'd be able to play with them in any other adventure franchise. They're interchangeable. They're interchangeable with many different magical franchises, superhero franchises. That shows how little Kevin Smith actually understands Masters of the Universe, that there is a definite flavor. Now, to be fair, when Masters of the Universe, the toy line, first came out, it was a Conan knockoff,
yes.
with science fiction elements. It was like Conan meets Star Wars.
But that was just the toys.
That was the toy line. Once the Filmation show came out, they cemented it as being a very unique
Because even the comics with the toys weren't the same as the Filmation.
No, I was shocked. I was really little when Masters of the Universe first came out, but I had some of the toys before the cartoon was on the air, and I read that, the mini comics that came with it, and I was completely confused. I'm like, who the hell is Prince Adam? Why is He-Man wearing a purple tunic? What?
Yeah. And why isn't Tila a sorceress and that kind of stuff?
Right, yeah, because she was a sorceress in the comics, and yeah.
But you can say, Filmation are the ones who made He-Man what he is, and the story and everything else. So it isn't exactly like, because it was a Conan knockoff, I can just, tie it to any franchise. And that's not necessarily the truth. And basically it sounds like I don't fundamentally get He-Man. I don't like He-Man. I said I don't like He-Man, but I like these other things. And I can see where these elements seem like they might be from other things, including the MCU and some other stuff that came after, Lord of the Rings, the films that came after the He-Man show. So that you could, and he's like that. So I understand it because I understand those things, but they're not the same thing.
And again, this is what you would expect to hear from a guy who admitted he didn't watch He-Man. He wasn't a fan of He-Man. He basically got handed the keys to a franchise he had no real love for. So, and we see this in comics all the time.
What are you talking about? He used to rush home from school before it even came out and then go watch it on TV.
Yeah, when he was like 15, 16 years old.
Right, he said so in the wrong year.
Yeah. It's very clear he was not a fan of the show, even though he tried to walk it back. And so what he did, and this is what we see with comic book writers all the time, a lot of these comic book writers that basically just want a gig on a comic, they're like, I really don't understand the X-Men, so I'm just going to make the X-Men what I think the X-Men should be.
Like me.
So I'm going to make all these characters like me, like my OCs, and I'm just going to, we're going to retcon the whole damn thing. We've seen this happen time and time and time again, where people move into, again, a warm seat with an existing fan base, existing franchise, and they change everything because they don't want to do due diligence to go back and see what actually made these characters so great, why they lasted decades.
Well, Hollywood should stop rebooting all this crap anyway. But if they're going to do it, they should find people who understand it to do it. And they don't. They're too busy trying to reach for some agenda angle that, and in this case for Masters of the Universe, it was about women. They said flat out in the pitch at PowerCon, it was the Tila show.
Yeah.
They said this flat out in the write-up. It shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. A rumor actually lined up with it. So now we're going to go to this new movie, which still could be a shit show for all we know.
I think it's going to be, but I love what the directors said.
Because it's hard to take Masters of the Universe and put it in live action. It's something like that. It's a very tricky thing. It's very hard to do. So I'm not sure how it's going to work out. But yes, what they said is what stuck out to me and why I sent it to Neon.
Okay, so this is an interview they had on the Nee brothers, I guess.
The brothers that say Nee.
Aaron and Adam Nee. So Aaron and Adam Nee said that they're going to lean into the wacky and wild reputation and not run from it. Okay? And they're very specific in some of the examples that they give.
I know, I loved it so much. It made me smile a lot.
They are absolutely backhanding Kevin Smith.
Okay,
now,
you didn't believe me at first. And then you went and looked at it again. And I said, no, look at it. And you're like, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, they are. One thing that was important to us is that we are unapologetic that it's a wacky, wild property, that these characters are colorful and crazy and weird.
They were. That's what made them so great.
They were. You look at the first series of action figures, and you could see it was like, okay, this is Conan. These, Conan and, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, and you could see a lot of that in the early line, the first scene, but
before we got the Filmation to touch it, and
then by the end of the series, we've got freaking, like you were talking, Mosquitor and Snout Spout.
We have action figures that Stinkor,
Mossman. Just
Clamp Champ.
All the vehicles have like faces on them and dragon heads, and it's just absolutely, Ram Man's got springs for legs. It's freaking ridiculous.
But in a good way.
In a good way, And they said that they want to lean into that.
Which is why it's hard to do in live action. So that's what I worry about. It's really hard to lean into that in live action and make it work. And this is aside from whether or not I think that can be pulled off. I love their comment.
We didn't want to try and tone that down or try to make it into Lord of the Rings and change everybody's names or something, but instead embrace that that's one of the things that's singular about it and special about it, compared to Kevin Smith, who flat out said he's taking from Lord of the Rings and that Masters of the Universe is interchangeable with any other fantasy or superhero franchise.
Which is why it failed with fans.
Which is why it failed. Okay. Yeah, the other thing from the get-go, when we were asked to come in and pitch what our take on it would be, was that what was very important to us was tapping into why, as kids, those toys and those cartoons meant so much to us. We really spent some time together just reflecting back on what the experience was like and the experience of empowerment and possibility that came from that, from playing with those figures. Kevin Smith said those action figures, they were interchangeable with Star Wars or superhero figures.
Right. And he didn't even play with them anyway, or even like the show.
Because Kevin Smith didn't watch the show, he doesn't understand what made He-Man special and what was so different about it and why Masters of the... Like, you can even look at, and there are some homage toy lines out there now, the Masters of the Universe, and you can look at it and be like, oh, this is definitely taking from Masters of the Universe. It's got that kind of blocky, chunky sci-fi feel, and you can see what they're going for. So it definitely had its own flavor, and Kevin Smith didn't get that because he's just like, it's a burger joint,
Well, that's because it's a testosterone flavor.
Testosterone.
He no longer has that.
Tastes like balls. Balls are bad. Elsewhere in the interview, they talk about lessons learned from working on The Lost City, which is basically Romancing the Stone.
I don't know. I think it's funnier. I actually kind of want to see it.
It doesn't look terrible. I mean, it doesn't look terrible.
I mean, I'm not going to go to the theater. I'll wait till it's out on, VOD or whatever. Yeah. But I'm not going to theater for it.
I think number one is that movies are made by a team. That's the thing that's very important to always remember. You do your job best if you're just surrounding yourself with excellent people. On that note, Aaron Nee added, one of the things we're super fortunate about is that we're not the only ones who are Masters of the Universe super fans.
There are a lot of Masters of the Universe fans, and I think that Netflix and Kevin Smith highly, underestimated this with that show. And then you have like the actresses and stuff and people in the show making these comments. Well, Teela's always in the show. It's like, yes, the fans know that. The fans are aware, but this isn't Teela. What you have here is not Teela at all.
Yeah, if you had actual Teela and not just an unlikable bitch, I think people would have been on board with it. But again, this is what happens when you have somebody put in charge of a show and they have no love for the franchise, and it shows. And look, I'm not saying Kevin Smith doesn't do other stuff right, his own stuff. I like his stuff, but He-Man was not a good fit. Wasn't a good fit.
It wasn't a good fit.
It wasn't a good fit.
And the way he behaved around it.
That was
like really shitty.
Yeah, he should have just kept his mouth shut.
No, I think he thought he was just going to, he thought it wasn't going to, people were just going to come flocking because he was Kevin Smith and he could do whatever he wanted. And they could just, present characters however, and everybody's got to shut up or be an istophobe. But they tried that with, you're a misogynist because Teela. And actually, I would argue that the way they behaved, thinking that Teela couldn't carry her own show unless they lied, made them more of a misogynist than the fans. But, their behavior towards the fans and towards people like us was not good.
Yeah, definitely changed my opinion of Mr. Smith, who I used to be a pretty big fan of.
I still want to. He refuses to apologize. He says, I'm not going to apologize. I didn't lie. Yeah, you did. But that aside, I just thought it was hilarious that, again, it's yet to be seen if this movie is good. I hope it is. When all these projects come out, people think we want them to fail. No, we truly hope that somebody finally fucking gets it and it's great. We want it to be great. But what happens usually is it's usually a less than stellar experience. And I would love for this to be really good. But I also know that in a live action setting, it's going to be hard. I would have rather have seen these guys with their attitude on an animated version.
Yeah.
A live action is going to be much, much harder.
Well, they're saying there are lots of very talented people who have been waiting their whole lives to jump in and be part of making that movie.
Well, I hope so. I really sincerely hope so.
There were very talented people waiting their whole lives to work on a Masters of the Universe animated series. And they would have loved to work on an animated series, and instead they get somebody who
didn't even like it, and has said on camera, I'm not a fan of it either.
Didn't understand the assignment. So maybe they've learned the error of their ways. Now, the other He-Man show, the CGI He-Man show, is actually pretty good. It is a departure from traditional He-Man, but it's got the fun
But it feels
factor.
more like He-Man.
It does. And weirdly enough, like I honest to God thought I was going to hate the CGI show. I'm like, it looks really removed, and it is way more sci-fi, and it's a complete reboot. But they were never dishonest. They were like, this is a complete reimagining of He-Man.
So expectations were managed.
Right.
And then it ended up being really good. And it feels more like He-Man and Masters of the Universe than Revelations did.
Yeah, Revelations, it felt like 100 other franchises, none of them He-Man. You know, and I mean, it's not that it was all, but you know, we said before, the animation was good. Some of the voice acting was good. The action figures that came out of it.
Teela wasn't good. God.
No, Teela was not good. But some of the action figures that came out, the Revelation action figures were nice. That's, you know, I mean, but it was a fail. So maybe they're learning. I don't know. Every time
I just thought it was funny they said what they said. I was like, they're smacking down Kevin Smith.
They clearly are making sure they're sending a flare up to fans, telling them that, hey guys, we're not Kevin Smith. We're gonna do right by this.
It makes you so happy.
And again, it could be a complete disaster, but they're gonna try to.
But they did it by flipping Smith off the whole way down. So that, you know, makes me happy in my heart.
We'll see how it goes.
Yes.
I'm willing to give them even though they're casting the West Side Story guy, I'm willing to give them the benefit.
Yeah, but when you see pictures of him, it's not so far removed.
Yeah.
So
throw a blonde wig on him and
I don't know. I just can't wait to. We'll see what this turns out. But I just love that they did what they did.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap this up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.